Here are your hosts, Kyle Fellows and Andrew Mertig. This is the Draft Fellows Podcast. Welcome back, everybody. It's episode 16 of the Draft Fellows Podcast. I'm Andrew Mertig. That is Kyle Fellows. And together we are the Draft Fellows. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, or you can check out the audio version on your favorite podcasting platform. Today is our second part of our NFC West draft review. If you want to check out the other divisions we've covered, you can follow the channel or the audio podcast. But this is it. This is the last two teams.
This is the last one. Yes.
So we got the 49ers and the Seahawks on the docket today, whenever you're watching this.
Yes.
And we will get right into it. I just hid Kyle from the video feed. Sorry,
I'm back.
Bad click. Anyways, the San Francisco 49ers with the 31st pick overall take wide receiver Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. In the second round, they grab cornerback Bernardo Green out of Florida State. In the third, they get guard Dominic Puny out of Kansas. Three fourth-round picks, safety Malik Mustafa from Wake Forest, running back Isaac Garendo out of Louisville, and wide receiver Jacob Cohen out of Arizona. They get Jared Kingston, the guard, out of USC, and then the linebacker Tatum Bethune out of Florida State in the 7th. So you want to start with Ricky Pearsall?
Yeah, I mean, it's super appropriate that, we just got news this week that Brandon Ayuk is maybe on his way out of San Francisco. We don't know. He's officially requested the trade is all we know. But it kind of felt like I like Ricky Pearsall. I don't like him as much as a lot of people, but I felt like 31 was a little bit rich, but it feels like the 49ers are planning for life without one of their wide receivers, and that may be part of this plan. But Ricky Pearsall, super interesting, great hands, good ball tracking, route runner, best from the slot. Interesting, he ran almost all of his routes from the slot in 2022, and I think was much more effective in that season from the slot. So I don't know how the San Francisco 49ers will use him, but I did like him from the slot better than I did when he was outside. But kind of an interesting dude, kind of like that interesting, he has that wide receiver swag arrogance to him already. So you don't count that against him. I think you just know that's part of being a wide receiver in the NFL sometimes. But it will be fascinating, how quickly does he need to step into being maybe a starting wide receiver in the NFL for a very good NFL offense?
Yeah, I think the 49ers had kind of addressed that they needed a certain type of wide receiver to really diversify that room and get away from some of the way that teams were defending them down the stretch. And certainly what Kansas City did to them in the Super Bowl to really limit things. And I'm with you. I didn't like Pearsall all that much. He was my wide receiver 18. You believe that?
Wow.
I graded him what I graded him, and as he continued to rise up draft boards as we approach the draft, I don't change my grades unless there is something that forces me to do that. So he just kind of got what he got. He's a little bit older prospect, but I can see things working out, obviously, regardless of if Ayuk is there or not, and I would fully expect him to continue to be on that team, at least for this season. I think that the 49ers are going to find ways to get Pearsall involved. And, certainly going forward, he's going to have a large role in this team as well. But what did you think about Bernardo Green, the corner in the second round?
So Bernardo Green is fat. A lot of people, this was one of those guys who's kind of a Twitter darling. A lot of people really liked Bernardo Green. I thought he was fine. You just wish that he had more ball production. He just had one interception across 2 seasons as a starter there. He stays on the field, though, didn't miss a game due to an injury. He's a physical player, which you love, but he did have a fair amount of penalties that came along with that physicality. So I really liked his patience at the line. I thought that was one. If you wrote down his strength, that was it for me. I thought he was really patient at the line, but not a lot of ball production. And at 64, I felt like it was a little bit of a reach relative to who else was available, but a super interesting player with a high ceiling. It's just you got to get some ball production out of a player that you're picking at 64.
Yeah, I had Renardo Green rated as player 164. So, 64 is in there.
Basically the same. Yeah,
Yeah,
basically,
pretty
yeah.
close. I did not like the tape very much. I didn't think he was. I didn't even think he was as good of an athlete as what he tested at.
Yeah.
And he, again, a little bit older prospect, 23 going on 24. I guess the 49ers don't care about that too much. And also, hey, like they're trying to win a Super Bowl this season. So taking a little bit older rookies probably isn't as much of a restrictive philosophy as it is
Mhm.
teams in other roster building situations. And they'll hope. I'm sure, given the success the 49ers defense has had in shaping not only their own players but also free agents coming in, that they will find a way to make Renardo Green really productive in that secondary. Speaking of guys who are kind of draft darlings, Dominic Puny, somebody
Yeah.
who rose really fast, really late. What did you think of Puny?
Yeah, so I mean, to redeem this conversation, if we have any 49ers fans tuning in, like, we didn't love the value early, but I really actually liked a lot of what they did in the middle of this draft. Like Puny here and Mustafa here shortly thereafter in the 4th round felt like were really good values of where they got these players. Puny is a interesting player with a lot of versatility. I think he can play all 5 offensive line spots if you needed him to. But it's probably best at guard. It's probably, I think, where he's probably going to stick. Good RAS player, probably best as a zone player. So I mean, good fit with the 49ers and someone I think that, it'll be interesting to see if he can crack their best 5 and get into the rotation as an offensive lineman. I mentioned Mustafa here. Andrew, I don't know, people may not know this, but we were like Talanoa Hufanga freaks. Like we were the fan club for Hufanga. It felt like we were alone in that. I'm sure we weren't. We're not trying to like plant our flag, but like I felt like it was rare that the two of us agreed on that and we loved him. And the 49ers were able to take him relatively late in the class that Hufanga came out in. I just want to say, if the 49ers get a steal on another safety in the 4th round, and it's because I love Mustafa. I think Malik Mustafa is a really good player, box safety, super aggressive, good tackler, team captain, chess piece. He can play him all over the place. He's a little small, like a little undersized, but he's kind of that shoots out of a cannon guy who plays way bigger than his measurables. If they get another one for free, I'm just going to be beside myself that the NFL let them get Hufanga and now Malik Mustafa to bolster that secondary. So goes without saying, really, really like Mustafa.
Yeah, I had Mustafa at player 128. So
128.
that's my dunking this week
Yeah,
to have it
128
close.
and
But going back to Hufanga, I had him as safety 1 in that class, and I
yeah.
thought, wow, I am out on an island, and this is going to look really bad. And he had a little bit slower start to his career, but when he took off, he really took off. And now, unfortunate that he's recovering from an injury currently, but
Mhm.
one of the better safeties in the league, no doubt, when he's
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's fun. And, again, 49ers just tend to get production out of
Yeah.
mid-round defenders. So, just add Mustafa to the list. Isaac Guerrero is somebody I didn't like him as much as many did. Some of that is the experience that I had as a Wisconsin Badgers fan,
Mhm.
watching Isaac early in his career as
Yeah.
like the 3rd or 4th running back who basically just returned kicks. But, a lot, really, really athletic, like
Mhm.
incredible RAS score. Somebody who could be really productive. And I think in that kick return role could
Yes.
be really impactful for the
Yes.
49ers. Jacob Cowan is somebody I liked a lot. I had him at 106. I think he is a fun true slot receiver. 49ers don't use that position particularly often. And I don't know how Cowan is going to get on the field with, the big 2 plus Juwan Jennings plus Ricky Pearsall. But to
Right.
me, Cowan is a really great value where they got him.
Yeah, Cowling is probably the player that I liked the most, that I watched the least. I haven't seen a ton of him. I got to him late in the process, but he's 5'8", 168. This is a player that should not work, but then the annoying thorn in our flesh that's Tank Dell exists in our mind, and we're like, maybe, like obviously, like you laid it out, the 49ers probably not the offense where that's going to necessarily thrive, and they're going to have a role for him, like especially as a rookie. But like you always have that like a little bit of like, okay, this is a good college player. Maybe it can work. So I'll be interested just to follow Jacob Cowing. I've got a few shares of him in dynasty leagues just in case he ends up being something here for the 49ers.
Yeah, kind of a weird scheme fit, but a really fun player, and we'll see how the 49ers use him, and they're obviously incredibly creative on offense. So that will be a fun fit. But then we transition over to the very last team we're going to cover, our 32nd final. It's the Seattle Seahawks. In the first round, they get Byron Murphy the second, the defensive lineman out of Texas. In the third round, guard Christian Hayes from UConn. 2 fourth-rounders, Tyrese Knight, the linebacker from New Mexico State, and tight end A.J. Barner from Michigan. In the fifth, cornerback Nehemiah Pritchett from Auburn. And then 3 sixth-round picks, Satoa Laumea, the guard from Utah, DJ James, the corner from Auburn, and Mike Jarrell, the tackle from Findlay. You want to talk a little bit about Findlay football?
Yeah, I do. I don't know about you, but I love spending my Saturdays watching Findlay football. Like that's a wake up early, just itching for the Findlay football. Yeah. Byron Murphy, man, like this is a player I did not want to like. Like I just didn't want to like him. And this is a player at the end, you just can't deny the talent. And that's the end of the game here for me was the motor runs really hot on film. I thought that this was going to be a player who had splash plays and then went away, like just as his, kind of a smaller, slight frame guy, but he didn't. Like this is a guy who played with a hot motor, super explosive, continued to impact the play all the time, even, as someone who did get some double teams and got some attention, active hands, might be one of the most explosive players in this draft class. So at the end of the day, I just had to say, like, this is a really, really good football player, and I had to like him. So I still don't like it, but I didn't like him at the time.
On September 7th, you can watch Findlay at Truman State if you'd like to check that out.
Yeah, Truman State's my other jam. Like that's the other one. Yeah,
the Wayne good. State is on their schedule, so
yeah.
that might be a local game for you. Who knows? I don't actually know where Wayne State is. I'm making some assumptions. So anyways, yeah, I like Byron Murphy a ton as well. I ended up with him as 22nd overall, but I think where the Seahawks got him as somebody who can be a really fantastic, he's a player. I think he's pretty solid against the run, but he can be a tremendous gap penetrator. And I think for the Seahawks, that's going to be a really nice impact player as well. If I'm looking at Christian Hayes, sorry, I was too busy looking up Findlay football and I lost my spot. I had Christian Hayes at 77. So again, getting pretty close here to where he actually got drafted. I think he's a fantastic guard. A little bit older prospect, but I think for what the Seahawks are looking for and their need at guard, he's somebody you can plug right away and be a starter from day one. Yeah. And, if he develops in the right way, this is a guy who can be a really long-term starter. So to get him at pick 81 is a tremendous value for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's a player, you mentioned it. He's older, but 4-year starter, team captain, started 49 straight games. So available, durable. He's a guy that's going to be able to come in and play, especially impact the run game, I think. So I think they made a good investment there at pick 81. I felt like that was a value. Andrew, it is a rarity. Now, this is not an indictment on the Seattle Seahawks, but in the 4th round, they picked 2 players. I did not watch either of these guys in the 4th round. So Tyrese Knight, the linebacker, and A.J. Barner, the tight end. I watched Barner as a Michigan fan, but I didn't study. You're like, what do you mean?
I was gonna say, what? Yeah. You've never seen him?
I've seen Barner. I didn't dig into Barner as a prospect other than just watching him on Saturdays. So I would be curious if you had any thoughts there on this 4th round that they had here.
Yeah, Barner was my 125th overall prospect. So once again, I'm off by 4. This is getting ridiculous. I didn't realize how close I was on some of these players at all until we started talking about
people. Like, he did not realize how good he was. That's what he's trying to say.
That's true. My system is pretty accurate unless you're a really fast straight line wide receiver, and then I'm off by about 4 rounds. So Barner, I thought he was big and physical. His best traits were blocking, really tremendous run blocker, creates space. He understands double teams. He can stay in and block in the passing game. His release after chipping is good, and I think that's going to serve him well in the red zone. Solid hands, good straight line speed, but probably going to have to hope he can catch a linebacker flat-footed because they think that he's going to stay in and block. There's just not much in terms of quickness or route running to get open on traditional routes, but there's still a really good value. And getting him late in the 4th round, I think even if he's just a Will Dissly replacement, there's a lot of value in that. And if he can provide a little bit more, we've seen plenty of tight ends who come in, they're really good blockers. You gain the coach's trust, and then you can develop into something, a little bit more. And Will Dissly is making a lot of money. Colby Parkinson's making a lot of money. Like these guys are valuable to NFL teams.
Absolutely, yeah. They kind of close out this draft class with a lot of selections in the secondary here. I was Nehemiah Pritchett and DJ James here. I was gonna say they close out the class with a lot of talent in the secondary, but I didn't like these players a whole heck of a lot, so I didn't want to be generous. But then I felt bad withholding that as a compliment. So Pritchett was my number 18 overall tight end, and I have James as 21. So some depth here that they can interject into the secondary, but kind of a player that's probably going to bust. But if they hit, they have a really high ceiling. So, I mean, Pritchett, 4.3 speed. So there's some, upside there with his ability to make plays. He does leave some ball production on the field, but definitely has the athleticism to become more in the NFL. And then DJ James is a guy who's undersized, 5'11", 175, but has some upside as well. So I was curious if you liked anything that they did here at the end of the draft here, whether it's corners or otherwise.
Well, they make things really easy because they took 2 Auburn corners. So for Seattle folks who wanted to check them out, that's some pretty easy tape to watch. But yeah, I didn't realize this either. I had DJ James and Nehemiah Pritchett 2 spots apart on my rankings. So
yes,
pretty much they're very different players. And I had them graded for very different reasons, but based on their athletic testing scores, and they're pretty similar in age. They ended up pretty much in the same spot. So I like James' value a little bit better than Pritchett, but yeah, I think the upside with Pritchett, if he can figure out whatever was going wrong last year, I think there's considerable hope that both of these players can provide some depth behind what should be a really fantastic secondary for Seattle with Witherspoon and Reek Woolen. And yeah, I think, if you're taking depth corners in the 5th and 6th round to have a little bit of the upside that the 2 Auburn guys have, I think that's really, really good strategy and draft value.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to be a fascinating division to watch. If you missed the first episode, we talked about the other half of this division last episode. So go back and check that episode out. But it's going to be a fascinating one to watch what happens between the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and the Rams. But I mean, lots of dominoes to fall here with the wide receiver situation with Ricky Pearsall and Ayuk, and then obviously how players like Byron Murphy impact this team quickly for the Seattle Seahawks. So fun season. We're not that far away. So thanks for joining us for the show today. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Draft Fellows, and we will be back next week with a new content offering for you. We're really excited to roll that out and get into the next series with you over the next couple of weeks. But from the draft room to the gridiron, the Draft Fellows have you covered. Until next time, stay tuned and stay in the game.